Welcome back to GTV Breakfast. 8 months ago, the NPP suffered a crushing defeat in the 2024 election. Now reforms are underway and the party is eager to return to winning ways. One man says the party needs a clean break from the past. He's calling it service, sacrifice and selflessness. Engineer Kwabena Agyepong, former NPP Secretary General and a seasoned political insider, has thrown his hat into the ring for the January 2026 NPP presidential primaries. He's eyeing the ultimate prize in Ghana's 2028 election. In this conversation, let's uncover his motivations, his vision, his leadership style, and the challenge he faces as he believes he is the one to restore the NPP's fortune. Expect his usual conduct and strategy and a direct appeal to the party's grassroots in this conversation on GTV Breakfast. Engineer, good morning to you.
Welcome good morning, Thelma.
To Studio One.
Well, walking into Studio One, I've had a feeling of nostalgia, goose pimples, because I quite remember on that day in 1987, as a young 25-year-old, I think, to come and host Sports Highlights. And I want to dedicate this day to some of my great friends, Henry Ako, who was the director of sports, George Peters, Moses Agyepong, Abraham Lai, and many others, you know, to Robertson, who was director of television, and of course my senior Edward Fachi, who I replaced as the host of Sports Highlights. So coming here is like home. I can't believe that it's been so many years.
GBC is 90 this year. What message would you have for the current generation of GBC workers or GBC viewers who may not necessarily understand the full extent of GBC's mandate?
Well, it's the station of the nation. GBC has been the bulwark of, I would say, information sharing in this country. And it's played such a vital role. And I think you can be proud of yourselves. I think you should strive to also do more, because GBC is represented in all the 16 regions around the corners of our country. And they've done a lot. I mean, 90 years, congratulations, and I hope I'll be around to come and join it in your celebration of these 90 years.
I'm sure you will. There's quite a few programs coming up, one of which had to be postponed. It was originally built for Thursday. Now it's going into next week because of the tragedy that we suffered as a nation last Wednesday. And you've been talking a lot about the incident since it's happened, offering condolences in that press statement to the Ghana Armed Forces advice on what the next steps should be. Yesterday as well, you issued another statement, and we'll put that on your screen for the benefit of those who may not have had the opportunity to see it. And in that statement, the engineer has written an open letter to esteemed countrymen, and he says in that letter, I'm reading it to you, I write to you today as a Ghanaian citizen deeply unsettled by a pattern that has evolved repeatedly to now threaten the peace and dignity of our democracy. This period of national mourning and deep, sober reflection occasioned by the tragic event of last week somehow provides a wonderful opportunity to develop a political convention anchored by the true consensus of key political actors in our beloved country, Ghana. Time and again, we have witnessed by-elections develop into scenes of fear, aggression, and needless damage to lives and property. It's noteworthy to recall Etiwa, Treponi, Akwitia, Ayawaso West, Wugong, among others, where armed, masked party operatives and vigilantes have caused mayhem, leaving many scarred for life and undermining our hard-earned reputation as an oasis of peace in a turbulent sub-region. There are not distant memories, but part of a disturbing, these are not distant memories, but part of a disturbing recurring cycle typified by the recent July 25 rerun of some polling station elections in Ablekuma North, where we saw the emergence of shocking parallels, state-linked forces, law enforcement hesitation, high-profile targets attacked, and post-violence blame games impeding justice. This can no longer continue while we grow numb. With all due respect, I trust that our democracy should inspire hope rather than the hazards we hold every now and then. Democracy cannot flourish amid fear, violence, and impunity. And the next page of that says, the main appeal. Therefore, I humbly propose to you, Sir Right Honourable Speaker, Chairman, NDC, NPP and Chairperson EC, a bold yet feasible reform as a convention when an MP's seat falls vacant, the incumbent party be allowed to simply select a successor through its internal democratic mechanisms without triggering a by-election with all its associated risks mentioned above. This approach acknowledges our peculiar reality and deals head-on with the disturbing issues we face. It saves the public resources, protects lives, and thwarts the escalating cycle of partisan violence. More importantly, it offers us an opportunity to nurture consensus building among political actors. We need to redirect our energies towards peaceful coexistence. Let's elevate this dialogue beyond partisan lines and inspire national consensus. Akwatia and Tamale Central can lead the way. He ends the statement, Ghana is stronger than our worst moments. Our shared cultural roots and aspirations are more than the conflict at polling stations. Political leaders should inspire hope in every rural classroom, every urban market, every unemployed graduate seeking opportunity. Let us prove that our politics can protect democracy, and our generation in particular will not leave it fractured. Let us break this destructive cycle together, not with empty speeches, but with courageous, consensual reform. Our legacy and the future of our people depend on it. With unwavering resolve, yours in the service of God and country, Engineer Kwabena Agyei Agyepong. So this was issued yesterday. Same day, the NPP also issued a statement communicating the party's intent not to contest in that Tamale Central rerun. So it does appear that you may be thinking along the same lines. But what are your thoughts initially, and what prompted this particular action?
Well, it's something a view I've expressed before. I think that by-elections have been notorious in this country for creating a lot of confusion, loss of life and property. Of course, when you have all the political forces concentrated in a small geographical space, there's likely to be flashpoints. And 90% of these by-elections have virtually returned the party that runs the seat. And I do believe in the mandate of the 4-year term, and that once we've just had an election, 2024, whoever occupies a seat on a ticket of a political party has been given a mandate for 4 years. And if nothing happens to that person, they will be there for 4 years. I think if then something unfortunate happens, as we've seen with our 2 MPs, then I believe that we can invoke this convention where the stakeholders can agree and say, look, let the party that holds that seat nominate a replacement through their internal process. And we don't need to trigger a whole by-election with all the resources that the Electoral Commission needs. And the information I'm picking up from the police, the amount of budget that they've submitted that they need to go and police the Akwatia by-election, we know it's just an aftermath of Ablekuma North, which we saw some very untidy scenes, and there were all sorts of statements made. Sparks were flying all over the place. So it's a heightened tension, and the amount of police they want to send in there, the food that they will eat, the logistics that they will require, the stipends for them, is all a drain on our already tight financial resources. And so if we can come to a conclusion, like the MPP has said that they don't want to participate in the Tamale Central, and the NDC can do so with Akwatia, it won't change the configuration of Parliament, because already the ruling party is very strong. Adding one more seat or one less seat will not change their strength. And I think it will also give us a quieter society, so we can start building consensus and begin to place our country first.
What does that mean for the established laws of electing members to Parliament? I noticed that you referenced the Right Honourable Speaker in your statement,
yes,
because we are currently running a first-past-the-post system, where the one who gets the most number of votes at the parliamentary election gets the nomination to go. So then why not get the next person in the chain? Why not get another system?
I think that even if it's by one vote, I mean, that is the decision of the constituency.
So the constituency not have the opportunity to make another choice?
I think we should learn from what has happened. I'm saying most of the time, the party that has the seat retains it. It hasn't changed significantly. There are a few occasions that there have been exceptions. But I think, especially in this current setting, with this national Sumba mood, maybe we can work more together, begin to build a consensus, and start a convention. Yes, I know there are laws, and that's why I'm talking about a convention. Once they all agree that this is what we want to do, even before we have a constitutional amendment, we have an agreement in place, and it will save us money, to save limbs and lives and property and agro and everything. So I think it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I mean, laws are made for us, the countrymen, right now, and we should be dynamic. If we realize the by-elections have been flashpoints, it hasn't helped. I mean, the last one in Agyei was led to a whole commission of inquiry because of what happened, you know. Nobody was satisfied with it.
So why not learn lessons from it? Why not learn lessons from Agyei, West Wuogon, and Ablekuma North, and then apply what the should-be practices are by all the actors involved, whether ruling party, opposition party, followers, and security
Why not
systems?
have a convention, Thelma, that, you know, the mandate was for 4 years. If the person hadn't suffered anything, any fatality, the person will be there for 4 years. So that's my personal view. I mean, I've got a lot of responses from the people I send them to. I hope everybody has seen it. If you've done me a favor by reading it publicly. And it's been very positive. Everybody thinks the way I'm thinking. And I've said this many years ago, I think 15 or so years ago, I mentioned it. Because I don't see the need, and the amount of money that we spend on one seat, there are 276 members of parliament. And the structure of it now, it will not make a dent on it. And I think going forward, if we accept this convention, even before we change the constitution, I think most of the players would abide by it, and it will help us. It will reduce the tensions, and then we can save ourselves some money.
Even though we've just come into another week, we've carried last week with us here, and you know, our very presence and how we are attired reflects the mood of the nation and the loss that we've collectively come to suffer with the families in the lead. I know that you may have a few words to share.
Definitely. In fact, I tried to prevail on your producer to give this a pass today and maybe do it next week, because it's not a very good time to do politics, you know, especially in such a time of Sumba national reflection. And then me and Asante, I mean, the loss of Asante Hima. I mean, it's a big blow. I'm a very traditional person from a royal family, and we have a long line. My great-great-grandmother was also married to Onotumfo, you know, so this is something that has hit me. And the whole country, I mean, these past few weeks, it's been very dark. The great music legend, my good friend, Charles Kujofosu, lost his life, and then this tragedy that took 8 lives, including 4 ministers, and then Asante Hima as well. So it's been a very difficult last few weeks for this country, a dark period, and perhaps we should learn that we are only human. It brings us all back down to earth, that you can walk out of your house, going to work and not return. So I really feel the pain of the closest family, the wife and kids, because seeing the images of multiple coffins draped in national colors brought me sad memories. Because I've been through that many years ago. You know, when you see coffins like that in the state, you know, it brought me memories. So I've been very touched. And apart from the fact that I've worked at the presidency under President Kufuor for close to 6 years, we've been flying with the Ghana Air Force. I have a certain emotional attachment to them. I have many friends there. And then in the period leading to the last election, working as the senior advisor to our candidate, Dr. Baumia, for 14 months, we were very close with the Air Force, everywhere, hopping from Dambai to Nandom to Wa to Pusiga, all over the place in these helicopters, and to see that lives can be cut short like that, and begin to thank your stars and thank God for your life, and all of us, brings a sense of humility, down to earth, that we are merely human and we don't know what happens even in the next minute. And I hope that that tells us something, that we all collectively as a country, we learn something. We begin to fall into that character of all for one, one for all. That we think more in a collegial manner. Think about the other person, And that has been missing in our politics, the strident divisiveness and that we have seen, which has occasioned politics recently. It's something that we should reduce and ensure and feel that political parties are vehicles to serve the public. I mean, governance, the welfare of the ordinary person is the centerpiece of governance, and especially the underprivileged in society. So we have to recognize it, and that's why when I talk about a new dawn, I want a new Ghanaian and a new politician. I think it is time for us to recalibrate our thinking of what party politics should stand for and what governance should mean. Exactly what it is: public service. Service to the public, not self. And I think sometimes we Ghanaians ourselves are the worst culprits, because we have become what I call enablers. When people get into positions of power, people quickly go and surround them and enable them to do things that they should not be doing. They will lose focus of the big picture, the task as politicians to bring change and development to our people. And then there's a sense of celebration, which I think is overly done. I mean, I've complained numerous times about when people get appointed as ministers and they are going to vetting, and you look behind them, you have a whole retinue of chiefs and people. You don't see that in other developed countries. You go there with maybe a few PAs and one or two close family. We have to get people focused on the big picture, the main reason why you have political power, which is to serve the country and to work hard for the betterment of society, not self-ingratiation. So I think we ourselves as a people, we have to look at what we do, and that's why I'm calling for a new dawn, a new politician, because eventually we are the ones that have the mandate to run the country. Okay, so we have the bigger responsibility to behave properly, to lead by example, not just by mere words, lead by example. And that's why I have always believed in what I call the triple S doctrine of leadership: service, sacrifice, and selflessness. Those are character traits that every politician should have.
But twice already you've hit these exact same drums.
Yes.
With this exact same message, perhaps an updated version in subsequent times. This is the third one.
That's right.
What's different about you now compared to 2008 and in 2023 when you...
It's not so much the difference. The fact that I bring a skill set, or I have certain things, the kind of courage, and my service to this political tradition is a matter of public record, especially at the time when it was difficult. In 1992, as a young 30-year-old on national television, GBC, doing the party political broadcast under military rule. I mean, if you didn't have the courage or the spirit of sacrifice, because I was a young public servant working as a civil engineer with the Ghana Highway Authority under military rule. And they were elders, but I could appreciate they were very scared to be on national television. People had run away from this country, escaped into exile, businesses had been collapsed. So it took a lot of courage and sacrifice for me, a young 30-year-old, to say, okay, I'll offer myself. Again, as you said, I had become a bit of a national celebrity very young because of sports highlights every Monday night. In those days, there was no plurality of media channels. It was only GTV here. Also, everybody looks at you. So at that kind of age, I became a bit of a national figure. And to put that goodwill at the service of my political tradition. It wasn't a difficult and easy decision, but I took it because I'm someone who believes in sacrificing for the common good. And I think that, look, at the end of the day, our delegates have to make a choice. And the choices are very clear. It's either they want more of the same, or they want a stark departure, departure to the status quo that we have been used to for the last several years. I think the grassroots are crying for renewal of ourselves, that we need to provide a more polished image of the NPP to the Ghanaian people to restore confidence and trust. After all, if you look at the figures that we saw in the last election, it was quite clear that a lot of our own party people refused to turn up. If you compare the vote in 2020, President Akufo-Addo getting 6.7 plus, and to 2024, when we were down more than 2 million, 2.1 million of our base did not turn out. Fortunately for us, they didn't move to the other side, because the NDC's vote moved from 6.2 to 6.4, just about 200,000 more for President Mahama. So I think our first point of call is to respond to the concerns of our party base, the grassroots of our party, and the concerns which we have captured in the Professor Agyei report. And that's why I had to front these reforms that you talked about, because there were many who felt that the electoral college system was broken and that needed reform. And again, I penciled the proposal that was
in April of 2025, citing the need for, the special electoral college, which had narrowed down the presidential, set up to narrow down the presidential aspirants to 5. You've experienced it when you started in 2008. From 17 aspirants, that number had to be brought down. You challenged the system, made the proposal at the recent delegates conference that was upheld. So it appears that in the next leg of the NPP's road back into power, a certain new structure is in place to make that happen. But let me take you quickly back to the lead up to the 2024 election and what, the causes really of the low turnouts are. You were a special advisor to Dr. Bawumia, so you had a front row seat to some of the happenings. And which one stood out more for you, and what lessons have you personally learned from that place where you stood?
I think political parties, what we normally do is we review elections like the military, where we call after action review, AAR. So immediately after elections, you have to review it. Of course, not everything that we will share publicly, because our strategic move forward will not be shared with the public. But we learn lessons from some of the things that we see, and the report captured quite a lot of it. And we know that one of the key things that was a common strand through everywhere that the team went across the country was the fact that we need to reform the decision-making process in our party. And then you mention again the proposal I made. I mean, I wanted it to be more far-reaching. I didn't get that.
The creation of the constituency caucuses.
I didn't get that, which I'm still very unhappy with.
Well, you got the holding presidential primaries first, and a lot of people had come against it, saying that the grassroots levels needed to be satisfied before rising up to
I think people did not really go through.
You were one of those who proposed.
People did not go through the proposals I sent. Holding the presidential elections first was contingent on expanding the base of the party, the electoral college. It is there. It is in black and white. That is exactly what I said. But for some, they ran away with the fact that I said I prefer early election, because it's important that we have a leader around who we can coalesce as a political party. When you are leaderless, it becomes difficult to bring unity and have a coalition of minds to really drive your campaign.
But you have a leader in Dr. Bawumia, and you served him in the lead up to 2024. Why not?
That was a different electoral cycle.
Okay.
That was a different electoral cycle. Our party believes in democracy, and at any point in time, as you said, we open nominations, people file, we go, and one gets elected. And I think it's the sign of all true patriots that once we go through an election and the majority decides on one, that all of us offer our wholehearted support, which is what I did. Went around the country and supported the candidate, which is what any true patriot should do. I think that should not be used as a point to even penalize me or to stop my political career. I mean, I think it's important we recognize that that political cycle ended on December 7th. And now we are starting a new cycle. And just as I contested in 2024 and supported the candidate after he had been elected, I am contesting 2026, and I hope I win. And when I win, I expect everyone to also return the compliment.
So is it
that's how it should be. So I think life thrives on diversity. I think that political parties should have options. We should not be locked into a one-channel way of thinking. And again, as I said, and you indicated in your opening, I think the party is in crying need of renewal and regeneration. And I represent that. I have worked with all flag bearers of our party, from Professor Dubois, Mr. J. Kufuor, who I served dutifully as press secretary for close to 6 years, President Akufo-Addo, who was his campaign manager way back in 1998, and then candidate Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So I'm one who will be a unifier. I'm seen as a unifying hand in this political
You've served decades at the heart of politics.
That's right.
So is this one about party or country, or do you think this is finally the time where you can claim something perhaps you feel is owed you for some reason?
No. It's not about claiming anything. It's about offering yourself and allowing the people to decide. And the people have to look at our strengths and see that at this particular time, this is the best fit, becoming the leader of our party. And I think that I tick those boxes because I've always believed in innovation. As press secretary, everywhere I've worked, I've left a mark, even in this house as GBC, as a sports broadcaster. I think I can be credited for the evolution of modern sports broadcasting, because it was through my innovation that we had our first pre-match discussions and panel discussions. That is something that I brought from my visits to the UK in the 80s. So that innovation, I think, and then even the very first phone call to this studio, that red telephone, and I hope that the GPC has kept that in their archives. That was the first time a call was put into the studio, when I was hosting the Sports Highlights. So at the end of the day, as press secretary to the president, I introduced the briefings, briefings at the castle. It was a novelty that many people loved. At the end of the day, having the president hold Meet the Press series, working with President Kufuor to do that. So everywhere I have been, to the extent that in 2008, the president found it fit to honor me with Order of Volta as an award, and quite recently also I worked as executive director of the Ghana Institution of Engineering, and a lot of people credit me with reviving that institution, and also in addition to being the executive director of the West African Federation of Engineering Organizations. And then, mind you, I was elected massively in Tamale as General Secretary of the party. And in my short stint as General Secretary, I made sure that all the 275 constituencies as it was then had properly operating accounts. Because I believe in strengthening the party at the base, that all politics is local. And when you have your constituency strong, that is when you can say your party is strong. So you build the party at the base to make sure that you put together a welfare system, for especially the polling station executives, and those are the ones who do the hardest work, the heaviest lifting, walking about in the bushes, knocking on doors, going on campaigns without expecting any reward. And so those are the people that I stand for, and I do believe as leader I'll be able to fashion out a welfare package to ensure that their hard work is rewarded. No political party can survive without getting their members to pay their dues. I think it's something that politically we haven't done too well because of the way we've tried to centralize the dues paying. I believe that should be decentralized. Everybody should belong to their constituency, and the constituency offices should be functional and should be working and ensure that party members pay their dues at their constituencies, not at the national level. I mean, I'm a Methodist, a devout Methodist, so we pay our tithe at the society. At the society, and the society will take a bit of it, send it to the circuit, and the circuit to the national. So it shouldn't be the other way. So I think all political parties, all constituencies should be strengthened. That is where the elections are fought and won and declared. At the regional level, it is just a summation, arithmetic. Okay. Just a collation and right to the national level. So I believe in having 276 almost semi-autonomous fighting units like an infantry, with the party center and the regional officers coordinating what it is. So I have a different philosophy to politics. I think we should strengthen the base of the party, and that is what should happen. And that's what I'm wanting to do when I'm elected as...
So it then sounds like you have a lot more work to do, perhaps at the national level of the NPP. Yeah. If you would care to...
I hope you are not going to say the same thing that people have been saying.
For that. No, I'm coming at this from the perspective of this is a plan that you cannot execute if you're president of the country, because the country would need you to be the president of the country.
That's correct.
Then who do you trust to do this job for the party that you've said for so many years? But perhaps it's a conversation for another day. I want to pick your thoughts, because you've carried your own scars from the parties, the suspension and what happened with you and Mr. Paul Afoko and later Mr. Gregory Afoko and all that. There are people who believe that old wounds cannot heal. You've talked about being unhappy that other key figures in the party looked on and watched what happened to you, but you've also said that you think you are a bridge between the founding fathers and the now members of the political party. You've talked about bringing back key figures like Mr. Honorable Alan Chematin back to the party, Mr. Kwabena Samoa and the rest. On what basis can you make that bold claim? Have you been in any talks with them, using your own experiences as a once scarred member of the party to perhaps offer that olive branch to them? Are you even able to welcome them back to the party?
I think what is important is that we should have goodwill, common sense approach and goodwill. And I always believe in being divine and I thank God for giving me what I call the spirit of contentment, and always able to deal with your past. The most important thing is not be imprisoned by it, and that you can always move on and heal your wounds. And I think, as you know, I don't want to go back, but I suffered personal tragedy very early in life at 20 years. But I survived it because I have a positive outlook. And I said at the time I was leaving my job as General Secretary, we had successfully concluded the presidential primary. Candidate Akufo-Addo had won by 93%. We had virtually done the parliamentary primaries. In fact, in one day in June, we conducted 251, and you didn't hear a pin drop because of the equity that we approached the parliamentary primaries with. I think that when you provide a fair environment for everyone, then you are likely to get the best result. By the time I was being orchestrated out in December of 2015, we had only about 4 or 5 constituencies left. No wonder in 2016 we won our largest number, 169 seats in Parliament. I think that is down to the preparation that Chairman Afoko, myself and the team put in place. You understand? Nobody can take that away from us. And even on suspension, I contributed, I supported over 100 constituencies quietly with financial resources, and the evidence is there. I mean, it was captured, and the party knows what I did, even when I had been set aside as General Secretary. I didn't turn my back on the party. I love my party, and I believe in rebuilding it.
These are even in people 2020, who have walked away. They've severed ties. They've charted a new path.
That's right.
There's a monarch butterfly. There's a movement for change. The Yellow Army has swarmed campaign grounds and hosted rallies. Doesn't it appear that they are too far gone to be brought back into the fold, for lack of a better expression?
I think, Thelma, you should look at me, and I can become an example for them, an inspiration for those who feel marginalized in this our political party. And there are many who voted with their feet by not turning up. and I'm an encouragement to them that the executive director of the Ghana Institution of Engineering. When the president called me on phone and invited me to visit him at the villa, the Jubilee House, which I honored that, although I was still on suspension, and he said he wanted me to replay 1998 when I was the leading light in his campaign on his first attempt. I obliged and took a leave of absence from the Institution of Engineering because that is an apolitical organization. And in fact, after that, I couldn't go back because I told the board of the institution that
you've been too exposed.
I've been politically as though I don't want to taint the organization. So although I hold very strong relations with them, Ghana, because we believed in principle, we believed in virtues, we have values.
Okay.
It was not fashioned on individuals. And I think right now we've become too individualistic. Our loyalty has to be to the elephant, and through that to the elected flag bearer. So whoever gets elected as flag bearer should deserve and earn all the respect of everyone around the party so that we can work in unison as one and expect the Ghanaian people to return us to power in 2029.
In addition to you, there are other towering figures standing on the elephant, looking into Jubilee House, hoping to find a way in there. Former Vice President whom you've served is on the bill. Former MP Kennedy Agyepong is on there. Mr. Brian Agyepong has also thrown his hat in the ring. The former Education Minister, Dr. Educhum, and more names.
I don't know for now, but
more names are likely to drop in this race.
I know Kennedy Agyepong has picked the form. I know I've picked the nomination form. I don't know about
we're waiting for the others.
So,
but according to what we've heard across media, what qualities set you apart from them then?
But I've told you, the courage that I've shown, from 1992, the fact that I've worked with all the leaders of our party, the fact that people see me as a unifier and as a grassroots campaigner who has deep roots in this party, who has the institutional memory, having worked with Darocha, Professor Dubois, all the elders of our party, A.K. Deku and Amesimeku and the rest. These are titans of our political
How do you intend to win over delegates who may have loyalty or allegiances to some of these other contestants and aspirants?
Exactly what I'm telling them. Their first loyalty has to be to the party, not to an individual. Because the party is bigger than any individual. Dubois was the candidate, he's gone. J. Kufuor became president, he's gone. Nana Akufo-Addo became president, he's gone. So it's the MPP that survives. So it is the MPP that we should work hard to protect. And should present a better version of ourselves to Ghanaians and make ourselves attractive and earn the respect of intelligentsia, of business, of the masses. And I do think that my work in this country showcases that, and I think that is a matter of public record, and I don't need to be espousing it that much. And so I'm very confident that once we go around the country and we interface with the delegates and speak to them, I'm confident of my chances of winning this election.
What's your vision?
My vision is to change this country profoundly, to have a country that is strong economically, socially cohesive, and to have our national interest paramount. The issue about patriotism, that every Ghanaian can put their hand on their heart and be able to work for the good of our country, is very important. That's how we change, to enforce law and order. At the last count, I had what I call the 6-point plan, because in Ghana, we don't enforce laws at all. Our built environment, as a civil engineer, as a technical person, I work with the professionals of the built environment to regenerate our urban spaces. The way we live is not the best, okay? And also to renew our rural areas. It's very important to ensure that the society, the ecosystem is planned properly, to have all the elements that are required to have an ecosystem that survives. And so that you'll be environmentally friendly and sustainable. We won't cut down our trees recklessly, and society has to be planned. In Ghana, you forget about what we call planning permission. All you hear is building permits. But an area should be declared a planned area before any development is allowed to take place. And I think the bastardization or the balkanization of the assemblies hasn't helped. We started with 110 districts. Now we are almost coterminous with the constituencies. And I have never believed in that, because the assemblies are the frontline service providers. They are the ones who work directly with the communities. And if the assembly system is not strong, we haven't devolved power enough, because most of the functions of the assembly is civil engineering related. It's either it's housing, it's roads, it's water distribution, it's electrical distribution, and it's planning. So if we don't put a lot into how we plan the human settlements, then we will not have livable cities. And that's what is happening here. And so as a civil engineer, who's also an environmental engineer, that's where I did my postgraduate in University of Surrey in the UK, water and environmental engineering. That's my passion. I'm very green, you know. So I believe in having a harmonious society where laws are enforced. I mean, you look around the country now, and there's a chaotic assembly of even outdoor advertising that sometimes can become a risk to drivers, you understand. So all these things have to be properly enforced. We have all the laws, it's just simply not enforced, and people are not penalized when they fall foul of the law. So you need a strong president who has the energy levels that I do have, who has the vision, who is results oriented, and who will chase progress. And as I've always said, to have a lean government that works with purpose. So we need to create a competent state, a state that delivers to the satisfaction of our people. And I'm all about that. Competence, courage, compassion, and empathy.
Competence, courage, compassion, empathy. The what is clear. Mm-hmm. It's the how sometimes that we find a differing in opinions. Because if you look at all messages that we've heard across campaign platforms, it appears that what is needed is for the life of the Ghanaian to be better than it has ever been. It's the route to that vision that sometimes differs. What different path would you take that would set you apart from your other competitors within the party at this level, perhaps your other competitors outside of the party, if you should get the nod?
It's not so much that. See, the emphasis has to be on the delegates deciding what is best for them. What candidate can best represent their interest and give them what I call a dog's chance of winning 2028. Whether it was by divine intervention or by destiny. I was on a part of the last 8 years. The last 8 years were pretty difficult for Ghanaians. And we all know about the debt exchange program and, of course, the global downturn economically, COVID and other things that impacted on all nations around the world and definitely in Ghana, you understand. So I would say people know I was not at the table at the time, you understand. And they are prepared to give me a pass on that. They think that we need somebody who's entirely different from what they've been used to for the last several years. And I represent that. I have a very firm view on how things should be done to enforce order and discipline in our country. And they have had a feel of me. I mean, I've been in government before with President Kufuor, and everybody knows I was without blemish at the time. So they can trust me to fight corruption. I'm not someone who built my real estate by being press secretary to the president. I didn't do so. And what I have is what I'd earned through my sweat as a civil engineering consultant. And yes, wealth is good to create wealth, but I'm one who ensure that the national purse, that public procurement has value for money for this country. I mean, in this country, we build one of the most expensive roads in the world, but never lasts even 5 years. So these are things I will look at and make sure we get to the bottom of it, you know, because that's my area of technical expertise. And so people know what I've done. Wherever I have been, I've left a mark, and they have confidence in my competence and the fact that I can enforce order and discipline. Of course, we all are politicians, but it's important that we recognize that it is the country that we are building, and we have to look at the interests and the welfare of especially the underprivileged. And I've always worked for that. I've served dutifully, And I'm very confident that the NPP grassroots will trust me more. I'm the only one who's won a national election as general secretary amongst us. So the party knows that I'm deep-rooted in this political tradition. They want somebody who sees them, can identify them by name, because I've been there with them from 1992. So I'm very confident.
Okay.
That.
But if the 2023 bid was unsuccessful, what do you say to the grassroots today to let them reconsider the choice that they would have to make as the NPP goes into
because now we need a strong character who would rejuvenate the base of our party and have the vitality, the energy, the record to be able to do so, and the vision and the drive to chase progress. And I'm results oriented. Never mind the fact that I have an engineering background, and engineers are very meticulous in the way we do things, and we believe in delivering results, not so much the route to getting the result, but it's important that we are results oriented, and I would ensure that we read the Route Act to those who should have it to make sure that Ghanaians get the benefit of what we have to do as leaders of our party and our government.
What do you want the people who have the power to make the decision to know about what you bring to the table and your message to the rank and file of the NPP?
First and foremost, I think it's important that together we should have a united party. And the party is more important than any individual. That is what I want the party people to know. That we should go back to our noble roots. The spirit of dedication, of voluntarism, of working hard for our common good. And they know that I'm an example, a true example of a patriot who's been loyal to the party throughout, in spite of all the difficulties I've been through. You understand? So, and then the competence I've shown during my work, whether as a civil engineer, my work as press secretary to the president, and my work as general secretary, delivered us the best result we've seen in the Fourth Republic. So I think I bring all these skill sets, and I'm not seen as stridently divisive. You know,
Perhaps
I'm
somewhat independent.
Some say too independent. I think it's important that we rebuild a new politician that can sometimes even criticize ourselves with respect, in dignity, with tact, and someone who has emotional intelligence, you know, is not liable to outbursts, that kind of foul language, you know, because we need to lead society. We need to leave something for the generations unborn. And that is what my life has been about. And in all humility, many people think that my time as press secretary was perhaps the best in the Fourth Republic because of the way I carried myself, because of the way I communicated with the media, whether it was at the airport returning from a foreign trip, or leaving, or at the castle when we were doing our press briefings, or during the Meet the Press series that President Kufuor used to have. You know, so I have a lot of innovations that I think I'll bring to bear on our party. Again, I say the welfare of the grassroots, very important, the recognition that they deserve, and today the former executives are going to vote. They are part of the Electoral College because of the advocacy that I led. And I would have wished that all the former polling stations would be voting so that we'll have a larger Electoral College. Because I believe it brings inclusivity, it enhances the sense of belonging, and it makes people work even harder for the political party. So these are values that I have espoused, and I continue. I've been consistent in the things I've said over the last 30 years, and people believe in what I stand for, the philosophy of what I stand for. And that's why I'm getting so much support from the rank and file of the party.
Thank you for sitting with us today.
Thelma, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure coming back to my home, which is the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation Television Studios, Studio One.
We wish you well in these endeavors, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to have another sit down.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Engineer Kwabena Agyepong leaves us with a clear call for a new dawn in both his party, the NPP, and the nation, anchored on service, sacrifice, and selflessness. So whether his vision and reforms can win the hearts of his party's grassroots and overcome the criticisms they've sparked will be for the NPP to decide. But one thing is certain, his voice remains firm in the national conversation on leadership and governance. And if you're with the NPP, this is a strong contender who has come to you with his bid for January 2026 ahead of December 2028. Engineer Kwabena Agyepong has been our guest on GTV Breakfast. We'll take a quick break. When we return, the show continues. Please stay with us.